There's a technique that I use to put lettering over an image, and using the same information that's on the original image put into the lettering so that it blends but doesn't quite blend. For example, I have a background here of Yosemite National Forest looking down the Yosemite Valley. I've added to that a layer of very bright red, all caps letters with the word Yosemite in it. Now, what I want to do is to cut out the image of, instead of using the red lettering, I want to have the image of the mountain, the rock, and the sky as part of that image. And so here's how I do that. I go to my magic wand tool and I select the Y in Yosemite. Now, to get the rest of the letters very quickly, I go to select and say similar, and you see they all light up. Another way of doing that is to get all of the negative space, and it picks up all the negative space except for inside the 0. And to collect that, I go to similar, and you see now it's collecting the negative space inside the 0. Then I can go to select inverse, and it changes, and now it's selected all of the lettering, that is the lettering itself. So there's two ways to go about that. If you've got the if it's all clear and clean there, you can just come here and say give me the Y, and you're on that layer because the other layer isn't involved. This layer is active, and then under select you say all is similar, and it gets you all the positive of that. Now, with that done, I'm going to turn off the red Yosemite type, but the blinking, marching ants, the marquee is still there. So under Yosemite, I go back to that layer, and I hit Command C. It just copied or cookie cut everything that's inside those marching ants. Now I make a new layer above Yosemite, and that new layer I'm going to label that new letters, and I'm going to deposit now what I copied in Yosemite in this new letters, and in where these marching ants are, Command V as in Victor. Now if I turn off the original Yosemite, you see what I have here is a complete copy of everything inside what was Yosemite. A centered word. It's picking up rocks and sky and clouds and rocks and trees. Now then, I'll turn Yosemite back on, but I'm still in new layers. And I go to the filters here, and I say, give me the drop shadow. And the drop shadow is now going to appear. Let's get this down out of the way a little bit so you can see it. I'm going to bring the light angle from coming from the upper left, coming down across. And then I'm going to increase the distance a little bit. Now you can see that the drop shadow is beginning to affect only the letters, but I haven't moved the letters, so it's in fact the letters are right in place with the information collected from the first layer of Yosemite, and by the time I add some shadowing to it, it separates out. Now when I OK that, you can see that I virtually separated out the lettering from the background. Now if I'd been in the sky only, that would have been just fine, because you can see the letters in the sky here are not hard to read. But when you get over into the rock area, the shadow is there, it's doing its thing, but it's more difficult to read. There's a couple of ways to solve that. I could go into that new letters and add another filter called the stroke, and it's just going to be an edge around the letters, and the stroke is coming out black. Let's make that stroke instead of black a dark blue, just to get involved with what's going on there. The size is 3 points. Let's make that edge a little bit bigger, and it begins to separate out. Then you can see, well, okay, that helps to see it better. That's a solution. I don't think that's the best solution. I'm gonna cancel that. There are other ways to go about that. Let's go back to our first Yosemite and put that in. Now remember that was orange. But I can come up here to the orange, and I can come down here and on the opacity, and I can slide it back to a much lighter orange. And that might be a solution where I've got some colored lettering happening, but I have transparent enough so you can see some of the texture through that. Or you may just decide, let's maybe that sky lettering for this case isn't going to work, and I would go back to Yosemite, leave this one with a drop shadow, and I have the drop shadow working there to help support it anymore, to say that those are where the letters end. But my point with this is you'll see a number of these on our projects where I've given you an image, and I want you to do your own version of the image, and sometimes I put lettering in the sky or put it up above here to show that this is the thing that I made and you're going to make your own. And so the lettering is there, but it's more instructional than it is something that you're going to actually put in your own work. But this is how it's done, to cookie cut letters out of a sky, out of an area, and then make them a separate entity from the background, and then give it some shadowing so that it helps set itself off from the background. Now, in this case, it doesn't work so well over here in the YO because it's harder to see. So the result here would be, let's just make this smaller and put it up in the sky. If I did that, I would then take this new letters I put in and throw it in the trash. I'd go back to my Yosemite, and my original Yosemite, and I would select the lettering, and I'd make it smaller. I just hit the shift and the option key, and I got the bounding box turned on, and I'd make it small. Whoops, let's go smaller. Catch that thing there, it's smaller. Okay, Yosemite, and then I'm going to take that and say apply it, and I'll put it up here in the sky. Now I could center this by bringing out a guideline to 3.5, since my scale is 7 inches across, and put Yosemite right on the center line, and still all in the sky. Having done that, I'm going to move my guideline back again, and I'll just do the process again as a review. I go to Yosemite, I select the Y, and then I say under select, I'll go similar, and it gives me all of that. Then I turn off the Yosemite, but the marquee stays. I select Yosemite, the picture, Command C, I copy it, then I make a new layer, and let's just call that layer Sky Letters. And okay, that. And then I'm going to say the Sky Letters, Command V, and paste what I cut off the first layer, and I'll turn off the first layer. You can see there it is. Now with Sky Letters, I can come to that filter and say give me the drop shadow, and when the drop shadow shows up, I give it a bit of a distance for the drop shadow, a little bit more spread, and maybe some sizing to muffle it out a little bit. And okay, that. Let's turn the base picture back on, and you can see now Yosemite, not encumbered here with the getting lost in the granite of this area here or on this side. Now it's just in the sky, and the drop shadow is effectively blocking or giving a framing, as it were, to Yosemite with clouds and swirls and things there. So that's a way to add this lettering to an image that doesn't become really obtrusive, but still using the pixels that were there, but now on more layers than one. Eventually you would throw away this layer that had the red in it. I don't need that anymore, and come here and say flatten the image, and the image is flattened, and I now can save that as a permanent collection in my file to say this is part of that project.